Every morning I wake up as a different version of myself, and I don't know which one is real. This morning, just like every other morning, I woke up, and for a fleeting second, there was that familiar disorientation, that flicker of uncertainty before my brain slammed into gear and processed the data of my current reality. This time, my name was Ethan Miller, I was 34, and the sunlight streaming through the lace curtains of what I immediately recognized as a rather cramped, but undeniably cozy, apartment belonged to a Tuesday in mid-July. My left hand, resting on the worn duvet, sported a simple silver band, a comforting weight that immediately painted the picture of a stable, married life. My wife, I knew without looking, was Sarah. She'd be 32, a kindergarten teacher with an infectious laugh and a fondness for oversized sweaters. Our small, two-bedroom place in the quieter part of the city, the one with the community garden just down the street, felt like home. A real home, but I've learned not to trust that feeling. Not anymore. You see, for the past, well, it's hard to put a number on it, but let's just say for a significant stretch of what I can only vaguely refer to as my life, every morning has been a lottery. A terrifying, exhilarating, soul-crushing lottery. I wake up, and I'm someone else. Not just a different job or a different city, but a whole different existence. Different names, different ages, different relationships, different bank accounts, different scars, different memories. And the kicker, I remember them all, every single one. It's like a colossal, sprawling database in my head, constantly updating, constantly conflicting, constantly reminding me that the me of this morning is just one in a potentially infinite series of me's. The first time it happened, I almost went mad. I'd gone to sleep, a perfectly ordinary 28-year-old named David Chen, a graphic designer living in a sleek, minimalist loft in Brooklyn. I'd had a mild argument with my girlfriend, Chloe, about whose turn it was to do the dishes, and I'd drifted off with the familiar scent of her lavender shampoo on the pillow beside me. Then I woke up. The room was different, stark, clinical, a sterile white ceiling, the faint hum of fluorescent lights, and a window looking out onto what looked like a sprawling industrial park. My body felt heavier, older. My hands, when I looked at them, were calloused, and there was a faint tremor in my right one. A mirror on the opposite wall reflected a man with a tired, weathered face, lines etched around eyes that looked far too familiar and yet utterly alien. His hair was thinning, his shoulders slumped. I tried to speak, but my voice was raspy, unfamiliar. A name echoed in my mind, Arthur Peterson. Age, 57, occupation, long-haul truck driver, marital status, widower, children, a daughter named Emily, estranged. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. I scrambled out of bed, my muscles protesting, and stumbled towards the mirror. Arthur Peterson stared back, his eyes wide with a terror that mirrored my own. I tried to remember Chloe, my loft, my design projects. They were there, distant and hazy, like memories from a past life. But so were Arthur's memories. The loneliness of the open road, the ache of grief for his wife, Sarah, another Sarah, a different Sarah, the regret over his fractured relationship with Emily. It was overwhelming. 2 lives, 2 sets of memories, 2 distinct identities, all vying for dominance in my suddenly crowded mind. I spent that entire day in a state of suspended disbelief, going through the motions of Arthur's life, hauling a load of steel across state lines, while my internal world was a swirling vortex of confusion. I even tried to call Chloe from Arthur's ancient flip phone, but the number didn't exist. Of course it didn't. That night, I fell asleep as Arthur, exhausted, disoriented, and utterly terrified. I woke up as Marcus Thorne, a 30-year-old venture capitalist with an apartment so lavish it made David Chen's loft look like a storage unit. Marcus had a fast car, an even faster life, and a string of interchangeable partners. He also had a crippling anxiety disorder and a deep-seated fear of failure. His memories flooded me, the cutthroat deals, the endless nights of networking, the constant pressure to be more, to earn more. I remember looking at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus's penthouse apartment, seeing a sharp-suited, confident facade, while inside, I was screaming. This has been my existence ever since. Each morning, a new life. Sometimes they are wildly different, sometimes subtly so. I've been Olivia Hayes, a 40-year-old single mother struggling to make ends meet, her days a relentless cycle of work and childcare. I've been Liam Carter, a 22-year-old aspiring musician, his life a chaotic symphony of rehearsals, ramen noodles, and fleeting gigs. I've been Drive, Eleanor Vance, a brilliant but socially awkward astrophysicist, her mind brimming with complex equations and the mysteries of the universe. I've been Sam Jenkins, a 70-year-old retired carpenter, his hands gnarled with arthritis, his mind full of quiet wisdom and the gentle ache of fading memories. The initial terror eventually gave way to a strange kind of acceptance, then a morbid fascination, and now, well, now it's something else entirely. Something colder, more dangerous. The first few weeks, I tried to make sense of it. Was it a dream, a coma, a shared delusion? I tried to find patterns, any kind of logic to the shifts. Was it random? Was there a theme? Did my previous life somehow influence the next? I kept a mental log, meticulously noting every detail of each new existence. The name, age, profession, relationships, even the smallest quirks and habits. I was convinced that if I gathered enough data, the answer would reveal itself. It didn't. The shifts remained utterly unpredictable. One day I was a celebrated chef named Antoine Dubois, 45, living in Paris, surrounded by the aromatic chaos of a Michelin-starred kitchen. The next, I was Priya Sharma, 26, a quiet librarian in a small town in rural India, her days filled with the hushed whispers of turning pages and the gentle scent of old paper. The only constant was me, the observer, the unwilling passenger in these countless lives. But then, something started to change. Subtle at first, like a faint whisper in the background. It began with the memories. In some lives, there were gaps. Not just forgotten details, but entire chunks missing. For example, when I was Mark Henderson, a 50-year-old architect, I knew I had a sister, but I couldn't recall her name or face. Her presence was a hollow space in my mind. The feeling was unsettling, like a photograph with a crucial part deliberately blurred out. Then came the anomalies. When I was Clara Davies, a 70-year-old birdwatcher, I found a small, silver locket among her possessions. It was empty, but I had a strong, inexplicable feeling that it should have contained a miniature photograph of a young man. The feeling was so vivid it was almost a memory, but it didn't belong to Clara. It was mine, or rather, it felt like it belonged to the collective, me. The pattern, if you could call it that, started to solidify. In more and more of these lives, there were subtle indications of something missing, something erased. A picture that should have been on a mantelpiece was gone. A conversation that I knew, with an internal certainty, had happened, was nowhere in the memories of the current persona. It was like someone was going through my internal archive and selectively deleting files. The fear, which had been lurking, became a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Someone was trying to erase me. Not just the physical me, the body I inhabited for a day, but the core essence of who I was, the sum total of all these experiences, all these memories. The stakes became higher. I stopped trying to understand why I was shifting, and started focusing on what was being taken, and who was doing the taking. I became a detective in my own mind, meticulously scanning each new life for these discrepancies. One morning, I woke up as Daniel Olson, a 38-year-old historian specializing in ancient civilizations. His apartment was filled with books, dusty maps, and an impressive collection of archaeological artifacts. Among them, on a prominent display shelf, was a small, intricately carved stone tablet. I picked it up, feeling its rough texture, and a jolt went through me. I knew this tablet. I'd seen it before, but I hadn't. Not as Daniel, not as Arthur, or Marcus, or Olivia, or any of the hundreds of others. It was a memory that belonged to me, the overarching consciousness, the one experiencing all these lives. The tablet, I suddenly realized with a horrifying clarity, had been a gift. A gift from a woman. A woman with dark, flowing hair and eyes the color of warm honey. Her name was. The name wouldn't come. It was right there, on the tip of my mental tongue, but it was just out of reach, like trying to grasp smoke. A wave of intense frustration, bordering on agony, washed over me. This was it. This was the erasure in action. They weren't just removing minor details anymore. They were coming for the significant ones. The ones that mattered. The ones that defined me. This became my mission. Every morning, as the new identity settled in, I would immediately begin my internal scan. I'd look for the missing pieces, the echoes of something that should be there but wasn't. And the more I looked, the more I found. Sometimes it was subtle, a favorite coffee mug missing from a familiar kitchen. A specific book gone from a well-loved shelf. Other times, it was jarring. I woke up as Jessica Lee, a 29-year-old freelance artist, her studio filled with vibrant canvases. But one space on the wall, directly above her easel, was empty, a faint outline suggesting a large, rectangular painting had once hung there. I had a profound sense of what that painting was. A self-portrait, bold and defiant, a cornerstone of her artistic journey. But it was gone, erased. The methods of erasure grew bolder, more aggressive. I started to notice patterns in the things that were being taken. Always something personal, always something significant to the life being lived, and more often than not, it revolved around relationships, around connections. When I was Ethan Miller, the current me, the married man with Sarah, I immediately went to look at our wedding photos. They were there, beautifully framed on the dresser. I breathed a sigh of relief. But as I flipped through the album on the coffee table, a knot formed in my stomach. There was a series of photos from our honeymoon, a trip to the Italian coast. In my internal memory, there were specific moments from that trip that were incredibly vivid. Sarah laughing as a wave splashed over her, the taste of limoncello in a small, tucked-away cafe, a particular sunset we watched from a cliff overlooking the sea. Those photos, those specific ones, were missing from the album. Pages had been subtly removed, leaving no trace but the faint blue residue. It was insidious. They weren't just deleting memories, they were literally deleting the evidence of those memories. My paranoia reached new heights. I started to feel like I was being hunted, even though I had no idea who they were or why they were doing this. Was I a test subject? A prisoner? Was this some elaborate psychological experiment? The only time I felt truly safe, truly myself, was in the brief moments before consciousness fully settled into the new identity, when the old memories, the accumulated lives, were still swirling, vibrant and unedited. It was in those precious seconds that I could glimpse the fullest version of myself, the composite being made of all these fragmented existences. One morning, I woke up in a small, sparsely furnished room. The air was cold, damp. I was lying on a cot. No window, just a single, bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. My name was John Smith, age unknown, occupation unknown. My body felt weak, emaciated. And then I saw it. On the wall, crudely scratched into the plaster, were tally marks. Hundreds of them, and below them, a single word, scrawled in what looked like dried blood, remember. A jolt went through me. This wasn't an erasure. This was a message, from a previous, me. A me, who had been here, in this very room, and had understood what was happening. This was a desperate attempt to communicate, a warning. I spent that entire day in a panic, trying to decipher the message, trying to understand what this, John Smith, had known. But before I could make any significant progress, before I could fully grasp the implications of that single, haunting word, I fell asleep, my mind racing. And woke up as Ethan Miller again. It was unnerving, waking up to the same life twice in a row. It hadn't happened before. The exact same Ethan Miller, same apartment, same Sarah, same faint smell of coffee brewing. I immediately checked the wedding album. The missing honeymoon photos were still missing. But then I looked at my left hand. The silver wedding band. It felt heavier today, and engraved on the inside, barely visible, were two tiny initials, AP. Arthur Peterson. My breath hitched. A direct link, a physical manifestation of a previous life bleeding into the current one. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, something that Ethan Miller would never notice, but for me, it was a thunderclap. They weren't just erasing. They were leaving subtle clues, perhaps unintentionally. Or perhaps, intentionally. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Was this a game? A cruel, elaborate game? Were they trying to taunt me? Or were they trying to help me? I started to scrutinize everything. Every object, every memory, every subtle shift. I looked for the echoes, the resonances of past lives in the present one. When I was Sofia Rodriguez, a 42-year-old architect living in Barcelona, I noticed a recurring motif in her drawings, a stylized, almost geometric representation of a bird. I'd seen it before. When I was Clara Davies, the birdwatcher, her field guide had a similar drawing in the margin, a small doodle. Two different lives, two different people, a shared, unconscious symbol. Was it a coincidence, or was it my symbol, a part of the core, me, that was subtly asserting itself? The stakes are higher now. I'm not just a passive observer anymore. I'm an active participant in this terrifying game of hide and seek. I'm looking for the breadcrumbs, the hidden messages, the faint echoes of the me that existed before. My biggest fear, the one that truly keeps me up at night when sleep finally claims me, dragging me into the unknown of the next life, is that one day I'll wake up, and there will be nothing left. No memories, no connections, no trace of the countless lives I've lived, no hint of the core consciousness that has been desperately clinging to its existence. Just a blank slate, a void. But then, sometimes, there are glimmers of hope. Like this morning, as Ethan Miller, looking at the silver band with AP etched inside. It's a small victory, a tiny act of defiance against the erasure. It's a whisper from a previous self, a reminder that I still exist, that I haven't been completely wiped out. I don't know who they are. I don't know why they're doing this. But I know this. I'm not going to let them win. Every morning, when I wake up as a different version of myself, I will fight. I will remember. I will search for the missing pieces. I will connect the dots. Because somewhere, deep down, underneath all these layers of borrowed lives, I know the real me is still there, screaming to be found, to be remembered. And I won't stop until I find out which one is real, and why they're trying to erase me. The clock is ticking, and every morning is a race against time, a race to piece myself back together before I disappear forever.